The Journal of Catholic Education is a journal that has had about a 15, 16-year history. And it was established by a consortium of Catholic universities with an interest in particular on creating opportunities for scholarship to be broadly disseminated that had a particular focus on Catholic education issues. Now, Catholic education in the purview of the milieu of Catholic education, but also some of the philosophical and theological underpinnings of a Catholic education as sort of a mission, as well as sort of a cultural context within American education. And we found that we had two things that we wanted to accomplish in the establishment of that journal. One is to provide a new platform for scholarly-based inquiry around Catholic education and Catholic education in terms of broader social justice issues. And second was to provide for our schools a new way in which they could collaborate and create new scholarship and draw in new individuals to that conversation. So broaden the conversation as well as create a new platform for this content. And over the years, the journal was relatively successful. It was a print journal, of course, so we had that business model of subscriptions based with a whole print process and a marketing plan that was based on print journal. And in about 10 years into the process, we really hit our peak. We sort of hit the ceiling in terms of subscription capabilities, and we sort of hit our peak, we think, in saturating that market as far as a print journal, our assessment was, as far as a print journal could go. So we began a discussion about an electronic journal, and it was a broad discussion about electronic journal, with questions that had to do with both the financing of the journal, but also how does an electronic journal find commensurate characteristics with the sort of philosophy of the journal itself and the particular content that we work with. So the questions then began to formulate around how does a print journal versus an electronic journal provide us with new opportunities or fewer opportunities. And we quickly went down a checklist of all of the various advantages to go electronic. And more importantly, that as we inquired about electronic options, open access became immediately the place that we went to. So we had this great storehouse of folks here at Boston College who were ready to help us. That was a huge part of our decision process, was the support network with which this was being advanced. Second, we looked at the business model. So we eliminated the print, no cost for print. We were a quarterly journal, and so that was a sizable part of our budget. So no print costs. But we also recognized that if we went open access, it would have a couple of specific points of view with regard to how we finance and how we make available the journal. And it seemed to be commensurate with, again, our sort of Catholic perspective on the scholarship that we wanted to disseminate. So open access provided us with a number of advantages. One, that we had this whole new marketplace in which we could advance the thinking and the scholarship. Second, we were not limited by the print journal, both financially and in its distribution. Third, open access allowed us to rethink what is it that our purpose is, and providing an international readership, providing a broader readership, inviting a much broader group of folks that could perhaps participate in the conversation. So it completely reinvented our whole thinking about how it is that we publish scholarship and how it is that this Catholic journal fit into the open access model, which gave us a great platform for both access, a new business model, and an appeal to our sense of sort of justice in the terms of new scholarship, accessibility, authorship, ownership, and a new distribution model. The point about how do we understand whether this is an effective model or not? One way to do that is to provide some statistics on how many hits we get per article, per journal issue, generally how many folks go to our site. That's a much easier way for us to discern whether we're effective and whether the issues that we're addressing are touching the sort of issues of the day. So a couple of things about the electronic that allows us to discern whether we're effective or not, that we weren't able to do in a print model. A print model, how many subscriptions do we have per quarter? We had a maximum at one time of around 900 subscriptions. It had dropped down to 700 subscriptions. Part of that was individual subscriptions and then library subscriptions. And we quickly realized this was a huge limitation. Now we have an ability to daily, weekly, monthly assess what our effectiveness is by who goes, how many hits do we get to the website, and then what articles and what particular issues are being especially drawing people to the site. I don't have hard statistics. We're finishing our first year in the open access model. So we're calculating, what would be an appropriate sort of on average set of statistics to give us a sense. But immediately, we see an advantage in that we can get almost immediate response to our journal. So we put the journal out. There's no lag time in terms of mailing. It gets to someone's desk in the hard copy model. You open it up, maybe you lose it in the pile. Now it's immediate. It comes to you directly through email. You go to the site, boom, there's the material. You engage the material, and we can get almost immediate feedback. So we have been able to chart a couple of particular issues that have had, especially we think have been effective, in that we've received a lot of response, a lot of conversation. So the opportunity to simply disseminate is one thing broadly. Second, that we get feedback. I mean, we want to advance a conversation on these topics. And the electronic open access model allows us to really cultivate conversation among scholars, practitioners, and others that are interested in Catholic education issues. So in the first year, we're still calculating some of the statistics, but immediately we were able to assess that we have a new mode of thinking about the scholarship in a more conversational manner. Equal access to everyone. So our international subscribers who had maybe a 3 or 4 week lag, they get the material immediately, equally as when someone in Boston might receive the journal. And we get some really good feedback about sort of where the issue is going. And if we see that there's a hot topic maybe down the road in a 6-month period or a year period, we know that we can target that in a timely way that doesn't have this lag time. The other advantage that we hadn't really thought through is the way that we work with our authors. So how do we draw new thinking, new scholarship, and new authors to this conversation? So the electronic model offers us, again, an immediate model of peer review. The peer review process, which was a question early on for our board, moving from the hard copy to the electronic, the question was, will we go electronic, and does that diminish the sort of peer review process or the quality of the journal in terms of its rigor? Not at all. I mean, in fact, we can see that the conversation with scholars is more readily available because of the electronic process. And we get quicker feedback, we get quicker turnaround of articles, we have a quicker time in terms of editorial process, and we get the good work out there in a timely fashion. It really is the whole package, from a new business model, a justice issue with regard to access broadly in an equitable way, bringing in new readership, having new scholars, and scholars treated well because they get more timely response from us. The editorial process is quicker. And we have this conversation rather than let's throw some leaflets out of a plane and see what happens, which was sort of now my vision of what the hard copy model is. Now we are part of a conversation as an open access model. We have new markers of, again, evaluating the quality of the work that we're doing as an editorial board. That would be one of them. And so we have an availability now that we can actually calculate that, we can follow that. The other advantage to open access is that the searchable quality of the journal is now broader than, or more specificity about searching a particular author. Even if someone doesn't know about the Journal of Catholic Education, they may know about an author, or they know about a topic. And so you can search that topic, and you can zone in on inquiry within each article. So that gives our readership, again, sort of a broader base, an easier inquiry. We don't have to spend time someone calling us on the phone asking, can we copy the article, and then we go to the printer and pull out our hard copy. And so it's available. We also know that one of our goals is to get scholarship into the classroom. How can faculty better use the articles that are that are presented in our journal. And faculty, I'm being told, for example, I rarely go to a hard copy journal anymore. In my syllabus, if a student can't get access to it electronically, I probably don't use that journal, honestly. So it's another advantage in terms of the searchability, in terms of, so not only citation, but use in the classroom and access by other, within the classroom situation. I mean, open access, when we talk about a broader readership, from a justice point of view, particularly when we're looking at a profession like education, which is the focus of our journal, how do we provide both the scholar and the practitioner with an opportunity to engage in these topics? And we think that that shared understanding and reality, particularly with the scholarship that we're developing, is quite important. So with the print journal, there was a limitation in terms of in whose hands was the information provided. Now it's completely equitable, so people access that as they find it to be interesting. So our challenge, one, is that we've provided an equitable access, and we think we've provided all of the protagonists and all the participants in our milieu of education research with an option. Now it behooves us to really make it appealing. So the use of this broader use of media, of sound bites, of music, of graphs and color, sort of interesting kinds of reflections visually that draw people into the conversation. So again, we're limited only by our own creativity, but we have this great opportunity to have this broader, equitable, more interesting conversational aspect to our scholarship. The other thing was to, in the transition from the print to the open access, was the ability to archive all of our previous material. Everything was in print. To have, at one time, to have brought that into an electronic archive would have been cost prohibitive. But providing the open access format that Boston College and other universities are encouraging allowed us to do that at a cost effective, which was, it cost us zero. And so we have now an archive of all of our journals for the last 11 years that again would have been prohibitive had we not participated in the open access process.